everybody this morning on January 24th, 2019. A special call meeting. Official time is 8:30. I call this meeting to order. I need approval of the agenda this time.
So moved, Chairman.
Motion is second. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We start off this morning. Mr. Pitts, would you like to start us off with an invocation and pledge before?
Be glad to. If you don't mind, please stand in. Please bow your heads. Father God, we come this morning, Lord, just giving you thanks. Father God, we thank you, God, for giving us an opportunity to serve this community, Lord God, and just giving us the wisdom and knowledge that we need, Lord, to make great decisions. And Father God, we ask that you bless each and everybody in this room, because everybody in we care about our community and want what's best for it. We just ask that you give us all these blessings in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Pitts.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Pitts, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. You asked for this special call meeting on a time-sensitive item, and I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So I want to thank you and thank the other commissioners for coming out this morning. It was brought to my attention, well, that we want to apply for a historic preservation grant. And in order to apply for a historic preservation grant, we have to complete a general historic resource survey grant first. And once you complete that grant survey, then we can apply for the preservation grant. And the thing is, it has to be done by February the 1st. We're not meeting again until February the 5th, so I just asked if we could have this meeting to approve applying for the survey grant so they can complete the survey of Jones County to determine historic sites. And from there, we can decide, which direction we want to go when it comes to applying for a preservation grant. Sarah's here from the Regional Commission if any of the commissioners have any additional questions, but it was just a time-sensitive issue because it had to be due by February the 1st, and we don't meet again until February the 5th.
Sure. Any questions for Commissioner Pitt?
I got one for Sarah. Once we finish this survey, whether we get or don't get the grant, can we use this information at another time for other grants and stuff too, or do we have to redo the survey?
No, so the survey is generally it's every 10 years. Okay. This actually will help you bring you into compliance as a certified local government, because y'all do have a historic district and historic preservation commission, things of that nature. So this is something that will bring you in compliance with that state program, and doing the survey opens you up to apply for grants that are focused on like site-specific projects. Gotcha. Maybe rehab, things of that nature for buildings. So this is kind of that first step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pitts, you also was explaining how the grant worked, and the way it worked is possibly is no cost at all.
Right. For example, the historic preservation grant, if we are awarded that grant, then it's a 60-40 split. We can use those grant funds, the 60 that the county is going to receive, and then the other 40% has to come from an outside entity, in-kind donations. And that's, if I'm wrong, please correct me, sir, but that's what I understood with the preservation grant. That 60% is receive, and then the other 40% have to come from outside entity. Right,
yeah. So it's a 60-40 split, he said. It can be paid with cash or donated services, things of that nature. The grant generally awards up to about $15,000. They said $1,000 to $15,000. It's not a hard $15,000, but that's the top end that they'll generally do. So with that, if you're taking the full amount, let's say $15,000, the 40% match would be $10,000 at one given time. And then roughly the prices though for that we have found, because we tried to get a rough estimate of what this y'all's budget would probably look like on it, and looking at like $25 per resource. So it's any building or structure over 40 years old, and 40 years and older is what gets surveyed, because that'll last you that 10 years, because 50 years is when a structure is considered historic. So that's and we don't have the full numbers yet for how many non-vacant parcels y'all have in the county, but looking at residential structures, we were able to figure out you have about 3,800. So it'd be $25 per that 3,800. So it'd probably take a couple grant cycles to get the full, if you didn't want to put in more than the 10,000 match each time.
Because I was talking to Greg, if we could even apply for a So Georgia Transmission Corporation, they have some grants or some funds that we could apply for to assist with any type of historic preservation and this whole historic preservation for the entire county. So it's not just one area. So please make sure that everybody understands
Right.
that.
Yeah, we can talk with them. There's a program that at University of Georgia called Find It, that they also work with the Georgia transmission companies to do surveys of unincorporated areas in the county because it helps the transmission companies and the counties themselves with knowing what resources they have. So that's definitely a route, and we can maybe speak with them and figure out how their process of going about getting them to help with that. Also talking with your EMC down here to see if they could get a letter of support or anything and send it and see if we could maybe get them down here a little bit quicker.
Just find another partner to help us out with this
Yep.
project.
Yeah. Commissioner Martin, have you got any questions? I think you and Commissioner Pitts had an opportunity to talk about you got any questions?
With regard to the grant, beyond just historic structures, are there any opportunities for identification of other sites? We have Jake's Wood, we have the Tanyard, we have the battleground over there at the industrial park.
Right.
And then recently I was just informed that there's a movement in the community to participate in the National Lynching Project that's sponsored over there in Alabama with the museum,
Okay.
because it actually happened back here, I think, in 1905 or something like
Okay.
that. Are there dollars available to do that as well inside of these grants?
As part of, I'm not sure about the last program money participating with that, but as part of the survey, you will sites will be identified as historic. It looks primarily at structures and things of that nature, but battlefields are also considered historic resources. The Tanyard site would also be considered one as well. So it would identify landscapes and things of that nature as well. So certain sites, if you have a few in mind, let us know and we can see where those fall. But generally the historic resources focuses on buildings, but it can identify other entities and things of that nature. So it would, part of this, you could at least have identification and say, this is on our list of important resources in the county.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Robinson, any question?
You said buildings. Do the buildings have to be in good shape?
Not necessarily. Essentially the way it works is if the building's over 50 years old and its integrity is still intact, so that may mean that the building could be partially falling in. Let's say the person that built the building, if they could come and say, yep, that's that building, it still has integrity and could be considered historic. Now, if it's been changed, siding, windows added on in like there's a massive addition at the front kind of thing, that's going to take away from that integrity and wouldn't be considered historic. But the condition doesn't really come into play exactly. So if it's still mostly there, it can be considered a historic resource. Now, the survey won't tie y'all in to keeping these buildings or anything of that nature. The only ones that would be affected or that are in local district. So this house that may be falling down, yes, it's considered historic, but there's nothing binding that says that person that owns it can't tear it down or alter it how they want. It's just for you to know that this is a resource. So if you do want to guide them towards keeping it in character, you can, but there's nothing legally binding them to.
Any more questions from the board?
One more. I want to say the structure next to the rail as we come in, it's one of those sites. Have you all had any success or history of success with negotiating properties with the rail?
I have not had any experience with that. I'm not sure. I know some communities will be able to lease structures sometimes, but I do know that it is a difficult process, and I can do further research on it, but I don't have any personal experience with it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any more questions from the board? If none, I'll entertain a motion to.
So, Mr. Chairman, make the motion, we apply for the General Historic Resource Survey Grant.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right. We have a second. Is there any more discussion? If none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Resner? you're the only department head in here right now.
One quick thing I'll share, Mr. Chairman. We were talking earlier about a situation we've got with the culvert on Howard Roberts Road. And talking with John Lowe, he had someone come out and take a look at it. It's actually washed out underneath the box culvert. They were able to stick a rod 16 feet underneath the culvert. And there's a lot of water that comes in and just scours and is washed out, and the road is starting to sink down just a little bit there. So it's the estimate we got is under the bid threshold, and so I think we're going to go ahead and get that done just in the interest of preserving that road and not having the road collapse there. So just wanted to mention that to all of you. It's over 6,800 was the estimate that we got on the contractor's work to they're going to pump concrete in beneath the culvert pipe, and we'll buy the concrete separately, but all total, both the concrete purchase and the contractor's labor is under 10,000. So just wanted to mention that was going on.
Any updates on the bridge on the highway?
The Howard Roberts.
No, Gray Highway.
Gray Highway. I have not heard anything on that one. No, sure I haven't.
All right, anything else?
Real quick, do we know when the lights are going to come on and the roundabout? I know the lighting structure's up, but are the...
I can check on that too. I haven't heard anything on that one either.
Okay.
All right, any citizens?
I just have a quick question. What distinguishes an old building from a historic building?
So historic, it has to be at least 50 years old, but it also has to have its character and integrity intact. So historic would have, most likely, tends to be original siding, original windows. If there's been an addition, it's smaller and in the back. It's not a major imposition on kind of view of the building from the street or from a public right of way. An old building would just be one it's been changed a lot, kind of thing. And
So
that's
my house is 50 years old.
Mhm.
Does that make, other than the fact that I live there, does that make it historic?
it would be considered historic within the realm of a local district. You do also have to look at the kind of history and context running it. So a neighborhood could be considered a historic district if it has enough properties that meet that integrity, but it also has to be, there has to be some significance of either architecturally speaking, it presents a certain style, or as part of the growth of the community, it was integral to that part, or maybe it was planned out in a way that was new for when it was built, that kind of thing. So there is some, it's not just the building itself, but there is some history
Famous
surrounding.
doesn't have to live there or,
Most of the historic
Washington
resources,
slept here kind of thing.
right. Most of the historic resources across the country are things like historic districts, neighborhoods, just, they're important to the locality.
Sherman,
Right, yeah, you don't have to have
Doesn't
anything
have-
like that. Mm-mm.
no, okay. I'm confused as to what this grant will be used for. Are we preserving the historic building? or
So
we-
what this does is it will help you get what's called a historic resources survey. And what that does is it allows the county to know what structures are over that 50-year age threshold, actually 40 years, so they know they have a 10-year kind of window for those buildings to get older. It'll let them know what structures there are that are of that age, and it also will let them know which ones still have that character and integrity intact.
Mhm.
So it allows them, it helps with planning efforts, it helps with if you're wanting to expand or create another local historic district. And once you do that, that's when there starts to be protections for those buildings or stipulations on how you can change them. But a lot of it's a good just kind of information tool that helps with future planning. So they
So
can
the
know.
$18,000 grant will be used for planning, is that what I'm hearing?
It'll be used for the survey document. So which provides them with a resource that they can use in the future. It also helps with, Georgia has something called a certified local government, and Jones County is a certified local government in that they have a local historic district. They have a historic preservation commission that looks at when a property wants to be altered, they make sure that it's altered it with, within its character. But it also helps with getting certain grant funds and other recognitions that help the community and historic properties in the community. So one thing with doing the survey, it's a requirement of being a CLG. So that's why, Historic Preservation Division has a stipulation that you have to have a complete survey before you can apply for other grants that allow for more site-specific projects.
And does this tie into the master plan?
I believe historic preservation was included, in the comp plan for the county. It's generally considered under, cultural heritage and natural resources, things of that nature, so it would tie into that component of the plan and providing them with more information as to how to move forward. It also, if there's projects that use federal funding, you're required to go through a certain review if it affects a historic property. So it gives them a sense of also where that impact may happen. So it provides a resource that helps them with knowing that, but also any developers coming in, you can say, these are the potential issues you may run into.
All right. Anything else? Start Ms. Martin, Commissioner comments. You got anything this morning?
No, other than wanted to make sure that we still look at a way to implement minimum housing standards, especially in District 4. I don't know about our historic status, but I know we do have a lot of dilapidated housing. So wanted to, get the consensus of the group to have the RC look into that, because we know that they've done that for the city of Macon and so on.
Commissioner Robinson?
Don't have anything.
Commissioner Pitt?
I want to thank you guys for coming out this morning.
Commissioner Kitchen?
Anything?
Commissioner Pitts, I need your help.
So I make a motion to adjourn.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody come. 15 went over. 15 minutes, so we 5.